Hi, I'm Greg Hall, and I'll be giving a presentation to the UC Tableau's users group in about 30 minutes from now. And we're going to cover these bullet points, set actions, and the JavaScript API. And I'm probably going to show this TC 2019. So in the Tableau conference, it showed the highlights. And under self-service analytics, you'll see set and parameter actions. And we're going to focus on set actions. So let me go back to the bullet points here. So I did a video earlier on pretty much everything here. The thing I didn't cover was the coding on the JavaScript API. So I'm going to do that right now. I'll close this guy and I'll log in, and I'm going to click on set actions. It's going to bring me a dashboard from Tableau Public. Before I dive into the code, the JavaScript API code, let me talk about this dashboard. So here are our categories, and in each category you see totals here. I'm going to filter on these categories with the users here above. I'll select myself, James, and Stephen Curry. So when I select these items, I'm using the JavaScript API event listers to get objects here. In this case, when I selected the items, I got the names and user ID. As you can tell, you can see the names here. You don't see the user IDs because it's hidden here. It's actually on top of the names, but I'm using CSS to hide them. And the purpose for that, getting the user ID, is that when I post these users, which you'll see in a bit, I'm querying on the user IDs to drill down to another dashboard and other resources. So I'm displaying the names here because visually, when you see this dashboard and I'm selecting items, it's more intuitive to show the names as opposed to the user ID. So let me post these users. It's going to drill down to another dashboard. So here are my categories, and I'm filtering on my users here. And I have my resources here. For example, I can click on reporting services here. Pretty cool. Reporting services is a report writer, so you can develop really complex reports. Now let me close this guy, and I'll close this. So now let's dive into the code. Let's go here. Oh, one more thing. So I have documentation here on the set actions here. So this is how you create your sets. Here, this was the issue we had with totals disappearing. So we can use dual access to fix that, to keep the totals intact. So that tells you that information here. And this basically here in the bottom shows how to create your action, your set action in your dashboard. So it's good to have documentation here, a little bit of documentation, because 1 month from now I may forget everything. So it's good to be able to come back here and just look at some documentation just to remember things. And here I have my code. So I also copied and pasted the JavaScript API code here for documentation as well. So here, right here is where I got the code, this URL here. So this is a JavaScript API tutorial. So this is, again, this is where I got the code. So maybe you want to jot this down or print screen this. So it says here, using the Tableau JavaScript API event listers to get the values of the items selected. So that's what I'm going to show you. This is also going to show you how we embed the dashboard as well. So here is our URL here, and that's how we get our Tableau dashboard from Tableau Public, the URL for that. You see 3 dots here. It's because it was just too long, so I just shortened it and put 3 dots here. The URL was just too long. So here you notice we have departments, so we have a query string here, right? So we're filtering on departments in Tableau. So what I mean by that, so we have department code concatenated with the department code name. So notice that this is checked, and it knows that I'm from this department, Dean's office, because when I log in with my user ID. And for my user ID, it knows that I'm from the Dean's office department. So it brings down my department here. That's why you see it here. It brings out my department code and department code name. And yeah, so that's how and then we filter our departments. So this URL gets assigned to string viz URL right here. And this gets assigned to viz URL, as you can see here. And viz URL gets down here, it gets initialized here with the new viz. And we also have options here. So options is another variable that gets passed down. Here it gives you your height and width, or pretty much the height and width of your dashboard. That's what that means. And it has other settings. Hide toolbar is equal to true, so it has booleans here. Hide tabs is true, so it's going to hide your tabs in toolbar. And we're also calling a set host parameter too, right here. So it's calling this method right over here, this function right here. And what that's going to do, it's going to get the location.href, which is your URL, and it's going to assign it to a Tableau parameter, which you see right here, the URL. You can also see the URL up here as well, but I like it up here. It's just more intuitive for me. I can see things at a glance. So it's good to know the URL, where it's coming from, because it could be coming from production, development, or staging. So once I get that viz here, right here it says viz.add event listener. So that's my event handler, and it's going to pass this on-marked selection, which you'll see right over here. And this is going to pass this here, this argument, report selected marks. It's going to return that, this method, which you'll see right here. And this is the meat. This is the meat of everything. This is what I wanted to show you. So what this does, it loops through all the items that we selected, and it assigns the values. So what I mean by that, for example, when I select items, so when I select these items here like so, and you see the names here, and the user ID again is up here, but you don't see it because it's hidden via CSS. It's doing it right over here in this method here. So this is an array that, assigning it to elements here, or creating elements, so that, for example, I have peer.fieldName, if it's equal to name, which are the headers here, which I'll just show you up here, the names, and these are your values here. So let me bring it back down. So if the peer.fieldName is equal to name, assign the value like my name, Gregory.Hall, this emoji concatenated with my name to this variable text, delimited by a comma, so it's going to have a comma here. So it's going to do that for all the names here, right? For James, Stephen Curry, and whichever items I selected. And we're going to do the same thing with the user ID too as well. If it sees the user ID header, it's going to assign the value to this text too here. It's just going to assign all the user IDs delimited by a comma. And it's going to bring it down here to, we're using so when you see slashes here, that means it's a comment. So it's going to go into a input type, a text input type, right? So as you can see here, it's stuffing it into a text input type for username and the user ID here. So that's how, so it's stuffing it in here. Notice you see this thing, it's a substring. And it's giving you, this is starting point, text length -2. And that's because at the end, you're always concatenating the comma and space here. So you want to get rid of the last comma and space at the end. So that's why you see -2 for both the name and the user ID. So so again, it's stuffing into a text input type, which is actually up here. There's two of them here. Again, the one on top is the user ID, which I'm hiding via CSS. So that's how this gets displayed. So the next thing is, when I post the users, I'm posting the user IDs. So let me bring this down here. And when I click on that button, it's going to call this method here, this function. And if it says that if the length or the value of length is greater than 0, meaning that if there's something, if there's content in the input type or the text input type, if it's greater than 0, if there's something there, then get the values of that and put it into this variable string, and then you're going to have, it's going to be a query string right here, and you're going to it says windows.open means put it into another tab. So it's going to have this file and with this query string here, and it's going to put it into another tab. So that's when I'm using .NET MVC to massage that once I get that information. You're going to be using either whatever you feel comfortable with. It may be Python, it may be Drupal, it may be Apex. Apex being the Salesforce programming language. You're going to be using whatever you're using to develop your website. So it says here. So if it's equal to 0, if it's not greater than 0, then it's going to say show this alert. It's going to say no user selected and must select at least one user. So if you see these /n's, that just means new line. So actually, let me show you this here. Let's reload this guy. I'll reload this. And if I don't select any items and I click post users, that's when you see the no user selected. Must select at least one user. But if I select items and I post these users, it's going to query the user IDs, and it's going to drill down to this code Tableau dashboard and I'm going to have my resources here as well. It's going to create these resources here for me. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I hope that makes sense. Thanks for watching.